Hey,
Hello.
Sofia.
Hi. That's a
How
wonderful
you doing?
intro. I'm
Well, I have
happy.
like 10 years worth of emails from you, so I figured I might give you a trip down memory lane.
Yeah, that was really good. Thank you. It was so lovely. Yeah.
So first of all, why don't you tell folks who you are, what you do, and what your current business model does, and what Enjoy HQ, like what's the journey from Gecko Board to Nom Nom to Enjoy HQ in San Francisco?
How many hours we have?
I think we have about 30 minutes. So
Well, I'll give you the important milestones. So I'm the founder and CEO. We started, as you said before, in 2015. What we do is that we help product design and research teams to centralize both customer feedback and user research data. And then we help them to streamline the process of user research or customer research through different workflows. But most importantly, we help them share knowledge across the organization, like how you get those insights into people's heads and decision making and so on. We are a tiny team of 5 people, mostly engineers that are distributed around the world. We have lovely team members in Japan, in Czech Republic, and Portugal, and here in Los Angeles. I came to Los Angeles, Alistair, not to San Francisco. Close enough, but
yeah,
same
but you
same
said you were
vibe.
going to San Francisco in the mail.
That's true. That's true. That was just like a business trip. But yeah, I'm based now in Los Angeles. And where shall we go? I forgot what I was. We were talking about the
So you have a team
journey.
that's distributed all around the world,
Yeah.
which I want to get into as well, because that's something that wasn't as possible. I mean, you were doing that before it was good science to be distant. But like when you started out, you were like, I got this idea. It's Nom Nom. I'm going to go into Techstars UK. A lot has changed to where you are today and where you're going to be tomorrow. So how did you, like, what were the mistakes you made to figure out what to do right?
Yeah. I think the problem has not changed, and the willingness to solve it has not changed in the last 6 years. What changed a lot was the approach, like how we design a solution that is actually effective and that people can use and it adds value and delivers on that promise. So we changed a ton of things along the way. And I was listening to Lenny before about Amplitude's journey, building for a specific audience and then changing and discovering, actually not even changing, discovering that there was audience here that was more interested in that product, or at least it felt that I was solving a very specific problem for them. When I was back working at Gecko Board, I was head of growth there, and my job, like most people that work in growth, is just trying to understand customer, build internal feedback loops, external feedback loops, understanding the growth loops themselves, how you get people to take some actions, how you help them to make those decisions, how you nurture people along the funnel, and so on. And to do that effectively, you have to understand not only what people do, but what people say. And we were really good at Gecko Board aggregating metrics and product metrics and engagement and anything that had to do with behavior, things that we could see people doing. But we were not really great at understanding why people were doing that. And at the time, we were basically gathering data across multiple places. As many other SaaS companies, we had customer support systems, sales systems, NPS survey systems. People were doing customer interviews. We were recording calls. There was a ton of different activities trying to understand customers. But having all that data didn't mean much, because if you cannot have decent conversations around those findings, if you cannot connect the dots between all those findings, it's really difficult to make the right decision or to align teams across what everybody believes is what customers need. And so there, and I experienced that challenge before. It was just very difficult to, literally you had to copy and paste stuff from different tools, add it to spreadsheets. I have a meeting, talk about it, have another meeting. And so that's very inefficient. And I experienced that in previous jobs as well. And in this very particular instance, I just decided, like, it had to be a better way. And it sounds so cliche, but it's true. Like, it's just like I couldn't live my life thinking that every job that I will have the same problem. And so I convinced my co-founder, who was an engineer at Gecko Board at the time, I met him there, to start thinking about this problem and to work together on the idea. And because Gecko Board as a business was all about centralizing metrics, we kind of had the background in our heads, like how you bring data together, how can we do it in an automatic way, can we make it easier for people? And then we started that journey. At the very beginning, after I quit my job and we got a little bit of pre-seed money and so on, I really thought that my customers were going to be marketing growth people because they were like me. And so I was solving for myself. But then when we launched the first version, nobody signed up. It was basically just product managers, researchers, and designers. And that really changed the perspective of how we understood the problem and what type of solution we needed to build. And so fast forward a couple of years, we spent a lot of time trying to understand that. It was my first company. It is my first company, so I didn't have a lot of skills related to really listening and understanding the depth of the skills required for doing proper user research. And so it took us a while to get to product market fit. But basically what helped us, what made a difference in that journey until now, what really helped us to grow and understand like retention and have happy customers that talk about it, was essentially narrowing down who our audience really was. Like, I know that you can find that's conventional wisdom, and you will read that in every single blog post, that you have to be very specific and have a very targeted audience and solve for a very specific need and so on. It's really difficult to do that in practice. When you're getting people that are interested in your business and you want to get customers, it's just very tempting just to jump and say, yeah, I can help you. It takes a lot of strength, I guess, mental and physical strength to say no to a customer that wants to pay you when you don't have many. And so after so much like looking for product market fit and redefining the product and learning from customers and so on, we took a bet. We just said, like things that we're doing right now are not working the way we want. So there's absolutely nothing to lose. So can we just do what we're supposed to do from the very beginning? And then we just decided to narrow down into user researchers. And we did that in a very systematic way. We did the whole survey, the product market fit survey. I forgot what that's. Who created the survey? Oh my goodness, I'm blanking right now. Sean Ellis, yes, Sean Ellis, product market fit survey. We did that a couple of months. We did heavy rounds of interviews. We did a ton of stuff, and we started measuring how we were evolving the product based on that feedback. And that was what actually helped us to really focus on the user research, because we had a product that worked, but it wasn't resonating with people. And you were mentioning the same thing before, Alistair, about like how you can spend years and millions of dollars to get to say a very simple sentence. And that simple sentence can open up like everything for the business. It was the same for us. It's like how can you communicate this thing that we know is important to the right people so they can feel engaged with the idea and really understand that the problem can be solved, that it doesn't have to be the way it is now. So this is kind of the journey. And in between those things have been a lot of like raising money and not raising money and accelerators and yeah, just like usual craziness of startups. But yeah, it's a bit of what I can remember on the blurry path of building something.
So when I love what you said, the problem hasn't changed, the willingness to tackle hasn't changed. What's changed is the methodology, right? Mm-hmm. And obviously EnjoyHQ is bringing people a certain amount of structure to the research problem. When you say you didn't know how to listen to users early on, what have you learned? Like, what if you could go back and grab old Sofia by the shoulders and give her a vigorous shake, what would you tell her about asking questions properly, and how has that affected EnjoyHQ's product design?
In a very basic level, I will tell myself that don't be afraid of hearing that your idea is not right or that you're completely wrong. Don't be afraid of finding out that the thing that you quit your job and then and all the effort and all these hopes are on the wrong direction. Like how it's just more about an emotional journey to be able to face the fact that people will tell you exactly what you need to hear. It's just that you don't want to hear it. And so when you're having conversations with customers, it's more about truly listening. And listening means not talking, literally. You just are there and you ask a couple of questions, but then you just let people tell you the truth and you take it and you turn it into something. And it just sounds so simple, right? Like it always sounds so simple and so obvious. But when you are doing it, when you are out there trying to build a company and you're nervous and you raise money and you have all these plans but you're not really sure if you can achieve all that stuff, when you're faced with a potential customer, you want all those things to become reality. What you want to hear is that they tell you, oh my God, Sofia, that was the best thing ever. I want this product immediately and I want to pay you a lot of money. That's what you want to hear. That's not what happens. People just care about their problem, right? So you will hear like why the thing that you build is not good, why their problem is different, why it's more complicated, or worse, like why they don't care. And so,
but it does seem like, it's not this myth that someone will tell you what they need is a market of one. And if you want to be a consultant, you can build for one person.
yeah.
The trick, it seems, is to triangulate what people collectively mean from a series of individual responses that are imprecise. So like if I could put a bunch of dots on a surface, like spread a bunch of dots across it, your job is to figure out where's the one dot that you're going to deliver that is close enough to all the dots to entice customers, right? And that does seem like almost a mathematical problem of like, how do I find people that are equidistant from the thing I'm going to produce because that's my target market? And so one approach is like go define your target market and then sell to it. But the other approach is sort of find all the people, it seems to me like the best companies are ones that define a new market, like the sort of iPad or Slack, where it's like, there's a famous old story about nobody wanted a minivan. Instead, people looked at trends like, driving a large family and friends to many locations. Nobody wanted a Walkman. They just recognized that people were spending more and more time commuting alone and would like a way of listening to personal music. And it seems like the greatest startups are the ones that identify something people needed but didn't know they needed. So how do you get them to articulate that?
I know I needed it, and that's a very interesting thing. I know I needed it, but the challenge is, of course, when you go out there, is just understanding whether or not other people experience the same like you do, and that validation process needs to be honest. Going back to like having those conversations, but when I talk about so much about the ability to listen and so on, that is a micro level, if you like, as an individual talking to somebody. But then when you start growing as an organization, then you have to scale that ability. And that doesn't mean necessarily people being good at listening all the time. It just means systems that help the organization as a whole listen to customers in a coherent way. And so that means that you have to connect the dots across any channel that touches customers and understand the difference between customer feedback and user research data. Those things are very different. So when I think about EnjoyHQ and what we build and redefining like the market, what it means to do user research in organizations, in modern organizations, it is for us, user research, it cannot be or can no longer be an isolated thing, a thing that researchers do, a thing that designers do. The same way that feedback management and customer experience cannot be a thing that a department does for the organization. It has to be a truly cross-functional system, and you have to build it as such. So when I think about how we help people to systematically listen to customers, is enable them through data to connect those dots much more easily, but not necessarily because they want to build a dashboard that they will share with somebody. It's about having conversations about that data and being able to collaborate in the analysis process and being able to write stories about it and share them and become almost like an internal publisher. So what is interesting here, while I'm trying to share my story as an entrepreneur, but at the same time tell the story about what we actually help people do, which is understand customers at scale. They're very different situations or contexts. Because as a small company and as an entrepreneur, you have very limited resources, right? So you have to understand how to make the most of those channels and have those conversations and scale yourself. But my customers are corporations, large organizations. In fact, we have customers that are 140 years old. We have customers that are very modern startups. We have customers in every single sector. The complexity there is very different to my complexity. So I can tell you about how I talk to customers and what helped me to change the product. But then I had to become an expert of what that looks like for a company that has 300 researchers, 100 designers,
300 researchers. That's
yes, I cannot disclose
staggering.
the number, but I can tell you there are companies that size.
Yeah, that's staggering.
And it's amazing, right? Because that's investment into really understanding customers. You have to really care about customers to hire that many people focused on understanding data and understanding behavior. It's gigantic. Right. And so in those terms, that system, like what they need is very different to what I need as a research operator.
Interesting. So you have to keep like two minds. Like, am I being a good researcher for where I am, but am I building tools for them?
Exactly.
I have a couple of quick questions, and we only have a couple of minutes, so we're going to move to the lightning round now. You moved from Europe to North America, to LA. Mm-hmm. What was the transition like? What was different in moving from Europe to the West Coast?
All right. So perhaps a little bit of background. Before doing that, I moved from Venezuela to the UK. So I moved from Venezuela to the UK in 2006. And that was a very different experience. I moved like any immigrant, with nothing, with no money, trying to make the future and so on. So I did that in the UK for 15 years. And I started a company in the UK. When I moved to the US, I had something, right? I already had something. I had something that was kind of working. I was excited. But I felt first of all, I needed to be closer to customers. And it's interesting because we have always been a remote company. But I used to travel often to San Francisco and different places. Most of our customers were here in the US and in Canada. And so coming to the UK, to the US and visiting, going to their offices and talking to them. It was just something that I wanted to do more often. And I wanted to participate in more, meetups and conferences. I wanted to be there and have that experience. And a personal reason as well was that because customers were here, I had to do customer support very late at night and I was exhausted. So I was dreaming with the time that I could have the same time zone that my customers. So it was a bunch of stuff, but I knew also that there was an interesting market here, that this is where I needed to be. And so the transition was actually very positive. It's been 2 years, and even though COVID came and changed again, the ability to actually meet people face to face, I still feel that the United States, or perhaps like California, has this energy that many people talk about, and it's just an openness to see opportunities, to work together, to dream together. Europe is awesome as well, and there's a lot of exciting things happening there, especially in London. And I love that, but it's definitely more conservative, and you have to prove yourself a lot longer before you get support. Whereas here, you can just start from scratch and somebody's going to give you an opportunity. So that mindset, I embrace it. I love it. And I'm trying to make the most of it.
Okay, last question. And thank you for this. I wish we had more time, but Louis wants to know, so I think it's interesting. This whole week is called Startupfest Growth Week. We have someone who is running supply side growth at Airbnb, and you were running growth at Gecko Board. So we've clearly chosen people who understand product management and growth. To follow up on Lenny's talk, how did you get to your first 100 customers? And what strategy brought you the fastest growth out of the different approaches you tried?
It's a very good one. There were two particular things. At the very beginning, to get to the 10 customers, it was very much focused on approaching people that I thought were potentially having this problem and just talking to them. Like everybody else, LinkedIn, and trying to find introductions through my network of people that might have a similar problem. But after that, In our particular case, because of the type of community that I'm involved with, Slack communities were very important. Conferences or meetups were very important. Like product managers, researchers, especially designers and researchers are looking for information through peers, and they want to share knowledge all the time online. And that might apply to every other, sort of area. But in particular, I feel like researchers are very much together, speaking online about the things that work for them, the things that don't, and all the struggles and so on. So I spend a lot of time chatting on Slack communities and going to conferences and trying to be part of being present, basically, and then meet people and when people introduce you to another. So once that was established, it was more about understanding what were the main worries of that community and how can I translate that into content that is useful. So I use those interactions in the community to build content. And so the engine, as many other startups, is being content from the very beginning, but content that is very focused, very practical, very practical, as opposed to top of the funnel. Interestingly enough, you're supposed to do things that are top of the funnel to get attention, but when you are building a new category and you're building a new market, you actually start, at least what it worked for us, is start in the nitty-gritty, like how do you actually do it, almost like tutorial-based content. And it was tiny amount of people that were looking for that stuff, but was powerful enough to get more people excited. Because once somebody is able to have some sort of success with this formula that you've shared, it's a lot easier for them to go and write about it. And so what we experience is people writing about their own success, sharing it online in those communities, and the whole cycle starts again. So it was about empowering people that wanted to solve the problem with very practical content so they could do it successfully and then share it with the community. That is kind of the loop that we got into, and it worked for us.
Awesome. And it sounds like because you had a fairly closely defined market that was by definition curious, because you're selling them researching tools, they're definitely open to new information. That's an interesting vector. Well, Sofia, it's been great to see you. And I know you have a very busy schedule and you're just waking up on the West Coast. So we appreciate you getting out of bed so early for this. And we'll be talking to Jonathan and Leslie tomorrow, who you obviously know from ETW. What's the, in a very quick, like 30 seconds, what do you think is the value of like a partner like Enjoy the Work for a founder in your situation?
It's just critical. It's critical having people that truly wants to support you and understand your challenges, but can bring something to the table. People that have done it before, people that have experience, that can give you a new perspective. Working closely. It's not the same when you have a mentor and you talk to them, once in a while. That's good as well. But when you have somebody you can talk to daily and you can ping them like, I don't know how to write this email, or I don't know how to pitch this, or how will I position this, or do I sound crazy? Like all those questions are valid, and all those questions can be answered by good partners, and definitely they are great partners.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate the insight. Haha, see, I'm still making nom jokes. And it's been amazing to see this journey happen over the last 10 years. So congratulations on being where you are with the growth that you're seeing in an industry that is really only now being recognized as sort of important with things like that Andreessen Horowitz report that came out.
Indeed. Thank you very much for having me.